And hello, good people of the internet. This is Tommy Kelly, and this is, of course, Tommy Kelly Podcast, coming to you today from a very wet Ireland. We had one of the warmest days in a long while. It's a very sunny day on Saturday. Well, most of it. By the evening, it got quite cloudy and almost threatened rain, but it was lovely. And the days previous to that had been really nice and sunny, and everyone was in good form, and everyone was happy, and the world seemed nice and hopeful and positive, and it looked like things might work out all fine, and people on the street were friendly to each other, kids played, and everything was fine. And then it started raining again, and we're back to rainy, grey Ireland. But supposedly by Wednesday we're meant to have the good weather back. We get it mostly in Ireland. We get about a week of sun a year, and it's mostly in September. But occasionally we get a kind of mind a couple of days here and there, and some extended periods where it's a bit warmer. So hopefully that'll happen. I don't really mind the rain so much, to be honest. I'm just so used to it and stuff. But it's handy for things like getting the grass cut, going for walks and exercise. And I started running again, which I haven't done in a number of months, just because the weather was terrible and also because I was lazy and didn't want to do it. I stopped enjoying it. And so I decided to run again at the first time ever on Saturday, which was the warmest day of the year. And I got about just over a kilometre done. And no, not good. But it's fine for starting off again for running. It's always easier to get back to where you were than start from scratch. And at one stage last year, I was doing 10k. But my aim is I want to do 5k and do it a couple of times a week. That was always my aim. And I kind of got my love for it kind of dissipated because I was trying to do it every day, and that's probably not a good thing to do. And then I was also trying to cycle and also trying to do yoga, and I just was doing too much, and I just ended up doing none of it. So I'm also back doing the yoga, which I'm really enjoying. I'm trying out this new app called Cody, C-O-D-Y, not to be mistaken with the file sharing or the TV film app Kodi, K-O-D-I. This Cody app is just all yoga, and there's some meditation stuff in it and some nutritional stuff as well. And I'm just testing it out. I did the 7-day free thing, and it was good. And I was doing a Daniel Scott kind of series, and it's like introduction to yoga kind of stuff, but it's more about alignment and getting stuff right, so it's getting a good foundation again. And it was really good, so I enjoyed it. So I will keep it for the month, $20. And see how it goes. I don't know how good it will be going into the future, whether it's worth 20 quid every month. If you're going to classes and you replaced your yoga classes with this app, then it would be a lot cheaper than the classes, but you're probably not getting quite as much as what you would from the classes. What I mean is when you go to classes, you're getting the interaction, you're getting the social thing, you're getting someone actually looking at what your body's doing rather than trying to self-align yourself or self-learn or whatever. That said, though, I find it really good, and I've been doing a lot of yoga from like YouTube channels like Yoga with Tim. He's very good, and I did a lot of stuff of Travis Elliott, who I like a lot as well. So it's good, yeah, I'm enjoying yoga. I'm definitely not the world's greatest yogi by any stretch of any means, but I'm improving and I'm enjoying it, which is the main thing. And I've gone from feeling like an old man because I was stiff and, because I hadn't been exercising properly, to now being feeling like an old man because I've exercised a lot. And so it's either way, I feel like an old man. Perhaps I am just an old man. The other kind of stuff yoga-wise that's going on at the minute is I'm also still getting through the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which I'm very much enjoying, and I find it really, really good. It's Edward Bryant's version of it. It's the big red book. I'm currently reading it inscribed, but I also have just got the email announcement that Book Depository has sent me the book itself. Books that I really enjoy digitally, I like to have physically. There's some books that it doesn't annoy me whatsoever if I don't have them physically, but some books I really want to have physically. A lot of fiction books I don't care if I don't have them in the flesh as well. But the Yoga Sutras is really good, and the parts of it are really complicated, but it's only complicated because I don't understand the words, which is not, that sounds different from what I mean, in that I know what all the words mean. It's the Sanskrit words and the terms of what they're trying to talk about. So there'll be some chapters where a lot of that's thrown at you and you kind of get mixed up in that, where, the ideas aren't that hard in a sense. Some of them are, some of them aren't, but in general they're good. It's just that there's so many of these kind of terms, whatever, that you have to talk about or think about, and then they're broken down, and then you're trying to remember what it was, which will also probably be a helpful thing when I have the physical book, because I can flick back and see what it is, which is much easier to do than in a digital book where you can't really do that. You can physically do it, but then you lose your place and stuff like that. So it's a bit annoying. But yeah, very good. I'm enjoying the whole concept of the surrender meditation to Ishvara and the stuff, and the different approaches of how the mind works, the vrittis and all this kind of thing. And it's so close to Buddhism, which is something I'd be fairly familiar with. Not enough to win a table quiz on Buddhism or anything, or to have a debate with someone about it. But I've read lots of Zen. I've read lots of Alan Watts. I've read a number of Buddhist texts. I've listened to lots of Buddhist podcasts. So I have a fair understanding of it, but I'm not in any way would put myself forward as an expert. I could have a conversation with someone about it, probably. And the whole difference approach to the whole thing is that in Buddhism, there's no self, no person at the end of the thing. There's no I. Whereas in the yoga thing, it's all very similar to the whole Buddhist idea, the whole thing, other than at the end, there is an I. There is a witness, if you want. And the pace where I am in the book now is just the kind of debates having about what, why Buddhism is, in a sense, wrong, or, that's not how they approach it. It would be more like the differences in ideas and stuff like that, because it's all very, nice. No one's pointing any fingers, whatever. But it's interesting because there is parts of me that like really enjoy Buddhism, but have kind of issue with other things. But there's other parts of me that have not issues. I don't have issues with anything. It's like that whole thing of that. It's where Buddhism and materialism overlap is that there's no, consciousness doesn't exist. That it's an epiphenomenon of the brain. Or materialism, slightly going a bit different than that now with panpsychism, which is the idea that everything is essentially conscious on some level, and just as it gets more complicated, consciousness becomes more complicated, but it's still epiphenomenal. It's not real. And so like people like Daniel Dennett and a host of other, pick any name you want, from these guys, the materialist guys, would say that consciousness is an illusion in a sense. It's not real. We only think we have consciousness. But yet we all agree and speak to each other as if we have a consciousness. And but Buddhists would also agree that there is no such thing as consciousness, that it is nothing more than independent, instant, perfectly complete thoughts that happen in a sequence, rather than any kind of underlying I-ness to the whole thing, which I can certainly see. That I can see that. Like I talked about before on the podcast about who am I? What is the kind of thing? Am I more than a collection of just ideas? But the yoga thing has this idea in it as well, but still says at the end there is an I. So we'll talk about the vrittis, which is the fluctuations of the mind, or the samskaras, not to be confused with samsara. The samskaras are also they're like patterns or loops that your mind plays back. And these are the things. So I've become very aware of them in my life, and to kind of separate myself from them and see them that they're not I, if you want. And from the Buddhist point of view, I would have always been kind of taught that there is no I, so push all that away. Whereas with the yoga thing, there is an I, and try and see the one. It's purusa. I've only read it. I don't know how it's pronounced, which is the ultimate goal, which is just consciousness of itself and cessation. So it's yoga, siti, vritti, no handa, whatever. I'm useless. I'm sorry. My Sanskrit is not good. Which is basically that yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of mind. So that's what the idea is, but still saying at the end of it, there is an I behind it. So I'm enjoying that, and I'm getting a lot from it, and I've been mixing up my meditation from it. And they're saying that the whole thing of trying to Ishvara would be the divine presence, or consciousness aware of itself and only itself, or words that are better descriptions of that I just don't have with me in my mind right now. And so it's God in a sense, but it's not an enlightened being, and the difference being that from what is Ishvara from an enlightened being would be that Ishvara never was unenlightened, or never had any of these limitations put on it, where enlightened beings by definition came from darkness into enlightenment, whereas Ishvara has always been this thing. So it's more than, say, Buddha, who was someone who was in darkness, or someone who was in the world, part of karma and samsara and all that, and got out of it. So this idea of Ishvara is someone who's never been in it, but is all prevailing and all this kind of thing. And saying that the idea is that the chanting of or whatever way that's pronounced properly, om or aum is sometimes written as, is synonymous or exactly the same thing. It's the same in essence as Ishvara. So if you to meditate or to chant, or to even chant inward in your mind, is that you are becoming in line with this Ishvara thing. I came across that thing before about chanting and names. The Hare Krishna thing and Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare is seen as being the exact same thing as Krishna itself. So while you're speaking that, you are, aligning with the actual essence or the real thing that is Krishna. Krishna would be seen also as a kind of what's the word? A version or of Ishvara or of Vishnu. And same with Ganesha, whatever the Om Gam Ganapati Namaha is, the chant itself, the actual thing, the word itself, are the exact same thing as the God or the idea itself. So by speaking these things, speaking these into the world, you're becoming part of that thing. So I like that. I like that idea. I think that's very helpful. That's very calming. And the only thing about is that it sounds a bit ridiculous because it's become such a stereotypical cliche kind of new age thing. I've seen, the hippie new age thing is, not to take away from hippies, but I'm talking about actual stereotypes rather than the thing, the cartoon version of these things, whatever. And it's just kind of, it's hard to get past that ridiculousness or that kind of feeling of, what is the word? My vocabulary has just lost me so much recently. It's interesting because I've been finding over the last while I'm really struggling to think of words, and I assume that's just getting older. But then someone was saying that can be a side effect of taking 5-HTP. But the interesting thing about that was that I didn't notice that I was forgetting words until after someone said that it can be a side effect of 5-HTP. So perhaps I'm psychosomatically placeboing or noceboing the whole vocabulary thing. Perhaps I just don't have a great vocabulary and I just wish I had better, and I just don't have the words at hand to do it. Anyway, the other thing that's been going on with me the last while is that I've been working more into trying to get back into sort of rapport with spirit. And this is a lot more woo-woo-y than the yoga thing, because it actually kind of implies that there is a spirit, or there is something where you can get away with all of the other stuff, and particularly chaos magic. From a complete materialist point of view, particularly Buddhism, you could be very much reductionist materialist and be a Buddhist. And a chaos magician to a large extent. You don't have to believe in any of the woo-woo stuff at all. So the idea of spirit is kind of something that is something I had to work on, because it was something I did have a very clear kind of connection to and then went away. And it's because I didn't probably work on it, or I didn't sustain it. And one of the reasons why I think that happened is because I got so much into photography, and that was that whole section of my life of, like, say, from certainly September last year up until, say, about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I was so enamored with photography and learning about it and all that, to the point where I got to the stage of being competent enough at what I want. Still obviously have a lot to learn, but I know that the fundamentals. So that was all encompassing and all that. So that was one element why I kind of got out of it, because I was spending so much time learning that I wasn't reading, say, the books. I would have been reading the blogs, or you would have been doing, or even watching the YouTube channels of the same sort of people, any of that kind of thing. But another thing that I think was to blame, or not to blame, that's just a strong word, another thing that is a factor in it, was that I got very caught up in other people's idea of what magic is, and what chaos magic is in particular, and about spirituality and that kind of thing. I got very caught up into the mindset of chaos magic, and not chaos magic in a sense of everything is, or nothing is true, everything is permitted, and have your own ideas about things. It was that what has become kind of mainstream chaos magic and stuff like that. I'd be reading a lot of different things, a lot of different books, and a lot of different podcasts and stuff like that, and I kind of forgot that at the end of the day, that I don't have to believe this. And I found myself thinking a number of times thoughts about magic, or even about the world, or about whatever, and then suddenly realizing, that's not my thought. That's someone else's. That's some podcast guy, or that's some some book I've been reading or whatever, or that thing I've talked about before, where I was like, if you watch now, I was watching an awful lot of Jordan Peterson videos, and I found that my vocabulary had changed to stuff like his, my mannerisms were kind of changing and stuff like that. So I am aware that I take on the kind of traits of other people. So when there was a point where, say, I was listening to an awful lot of podcasts. Say I was listening, like, probably easier to give a lot of examples. Say a lot of Gordon's podcasts and Rune Soup, or I was reading a lot of Alan Chapman stuff, and both people have, very different views on the whole thing. Or, I was reading Jason Miller stuff, doing his courses and stuff like that, and all of that's fine. Taking that in, learning all that stuff, and it's wonderful stuff. And it's definitely not saying anything bad about any of those sources, because they're wonderful stuff, and you should check them out if you haven't. But it's just kind of this discernment or lack of discernment within me of being unable to take all of these kind of great stuff, like, say, whatever, even taking all the stuff, ideas about magic and spirituality and the world in, and not processing them. Instead of processing them, just accepting them as is, and trying to work out which bits I agree with, which bits work for me, which bits don't. And a clear kind of good example of this is the whole Saint Cyprian thing, who I very much have a feeling of kinship or a calling or something from him, if you want, whatever way. Or I like, probably another way of looking is, I like the aesthetic, I like the idea of it, I like the whole thing, this kind of saint who's also a bit of a, black magician who has a history of demonology, and is seen around the world as this kind of grandfather of magic, I suppose, in one sense. And I kind of was reading all the books on Cyprian and all of the things of Jose's book, any number of those books. And I've kind of, that, instead of getting me closer and closer to Cyprian, it got me further and further away, because it was all about, it was just unable to, I was, not that I was unable, I wasn't processing other people's opinion, I was just accepting it as being that's what it was. Now, it's more than just opinion in a lot of these things, because there is cultural and historical background that is part of the whole thing. So it's not just opinion. So, like, Jose's book is not just opinion about what he thinks, it's actually a translation of different books. So I get that. So just to clarify on that, I'm not saying it's all opinion, but it's taking the bits on that I find relevant or interesting, whatever. So that was an element of just being too much absorbed in other people's ideas, to the point of realizing, as I say, that, I don't agree with this. This isn't how it works for me, or whatever. And in some sense, I'd been kind of dismissing things. I've been pulled away from magic because I was going in a direction that isn't my direction, or isn't, my path, my whatever. Nothing wrong with these directions. Obviously, it's not what I was, or not who I am. And I felt kind of disassociated and away from, and obviously because I wasn't, in a sense, being true to who I was and true to my path. So that kind of, I ended up then pulling away, and then that went into the photography kind of section of, this loop or whatever. And that was good, because it gave me kind of break away from all of those things. So I stopped listening to all the podcasts. I've stopped reading all kind of occult literature or whatever. Stayed away from blogs, stopped hanging out in Occult and Reddit, pulled back from CMG and Facebook, and didn't really spend an awful lot of time thinking on these kind of things, because I had become absorbed more in art and creation and stuff like that. But it kind of turned around again. Was basically when Jason Louv kind of emailed me and said, do you want to read his new book? And that was kind of a Kickstarter onto what I was to get back into it. But not only that, it was Ramsey Duke's book, SSOTBME. I hope I get it right. I'm never sure if I get that right. And that kind of, because I approach magic a fairly similar way to Ramsey Dukes, or Lionel Schnell does. Not fully, but I really like his outlook on it. And it's that I was kind of it was almost a moment of, oh yeah, this is what I like. This is what I'm into. So that kind of woke me up a bit more into it as well. And so for the last while, I've been kind of enjoying it again, and kind of having a good experience with it again, and with a different approach, coming at it from this kind of new agey yoga, Patanjali kind of approach to whole things, to meditation stuff, coupled with the entire stuff that we were doing at the Journey, which is this year-long shadow working stuff that we're doing on the Patreon. And what I've noticed is that the other thing I did before I get to that is what I also did is I cleared my entire altar out of all my magic accoutrement and all stuff, like all my tarot cards came off and all my wand, my pendulum, all my bits and pieces, and I cleared it away altogether. And all that was left in it was basically the servitors from the journey and the 40 servants. And then, after that, I had a very little connection to spirit, strangely enough. So for some reason or whatever, I've decided to get a Baphomet statue. That seemed to be calling out for me or whatever. There was lots, so many goat sinks, whatever. So I got that. And when that arrived, I kind of wanted then to put back the altar together. So I have back with my Ganesha. I have a Ganesha altar, a separate one. Then I have my big altar, which had Saint Cyprian back on it, with all this stuff that I got from the Saint Cyprian place, the church, when I was in Bucharest last year, my pilgrimage. The holy water I took from the church, the bits of stone that I took from church, all those things, and he has lots of crucifix and stuff around him and stuff like that, and some skulls and stuff like that, all of that. And I kind of went to an approach of Saint Cyprian as from what I think he is, because he always seemed a bit aloof and distant from me when I started viewing him through the eyes of other people. And immediately I felt a bigger connection to him than I had in a long while, like in a kind of a grandfatheral, family kind of sense. And it kind of reminded me when I was learning Reiki, when I was in college. I did holistic health studies in college for 2 years, and one of them was Reiki. And my Reiki teacher always was going on about that she could see my guides. And I was going, okay, sure, yeah, because like as much as I love all this, there's a huge part of me just goes, yeah, right, you're insane, or you're lying, which is probably, not saying she was lying, but there's an awful lot of lying goes on, as Nick Dutch says in one of his videos. People say shit, people make up stuff all the time, and you have to keep that you have to keep that at the forefront of your mind when you're dealing with these things. So be highly skeptical about it all in the proper sense, not in the kind of debunking sense, where you go out of your way to just come from the world as a debunker rather than a skeptic, which is, be skeptical about things, but don't dismiss things out of hand. So she always said to me that she could see my guides, and the guide she always seen for me was a wizard, a kind of like kind of the Merlin, Gandalf kind of wizard or whatever, who she says was always around me, whatever, and I couldn't see him and I had no connection. And that time, I wasn't really into magic. I knew a bit about Wicca, and I definitely knew about Stuart Wilde and Theosophy and Buddhism and all of this kind of stuff, but not chaos magic per se. Or I knew a bit of Crowley, but that's probably it. I definitely hadn't read any of. I definitely wouldn't have read any of Peter Carroll's books. I wouldn't have known who Gordon was. Gordon White, that is, from Rune Soup, or anything. That's years later. All that happened. So magic, while I would have seen like things like law of attraction or some stuff Stuart Wilde talks about, all of that, I would have been aware of kind of some sort of magic, but I don't know if I would have labelled it magic per se, or if I would have been just getting into magic by the end of it. So the whole Merlin thing, whatever, I was kind of going, that doesn't really make sense to me. I don't, because I don't have a magic kind of thing. Now pulling back, that the way I associate now with Saint Cyprian is this Merlin Gandalf type figure, almost Ben Kenobi type guy type thing, and it's an awful lot. It feels an awful lot more real, or more. It feels, a closeness that I didn't kind of feel when I was kind of looking, as I say, through the eyes of other people about this, about Saint Cyprian or whatever. And immediately once I kind of reapproached him from my own kind of place of what I thought or whatever, it was much better. And I feel much better about it. And I feel kind of closer is the best word I can kind of put to it. I know it's hokey, I know it's woo-woo, but that's how that certainly feels. So if there's a lesson out of all of this, I guess what I'm saying is that if you are to read and to study and to get, all these ideas is brilliant and something that you definitely should be spending time doing. Read Gordon White's books, particularly read Gordon White's books. Read Jason Miller's books. Read Jason Louv's books. Read all of Alan Chapman's books. If you're into read, it's not it's not compulsory. Don't read any books you don't want to read. And they're just the people I gravitated towards. Like, there'll be others, like people of the Gallery of Magic stuff, and I like some of his stuff, the Damon Brand. But wouldn't have an affinity with him so much as I would with maybe some of the other people. And I also like people love E.A. Cuetting and all that. And I mean, that's fine. Cuetting knows his stuff. Certainly does. He just has his own marketing bent on it, which is fine. People can do what they want. So, whoever you're associating with, however you find, maybe it's Thomas Carlson from Dragon Rogue, or Rouge, or whoever it is. Phil Hine. Peter Carroll or Lionel Schnell or whoever. Maybe it's Crowley, maybe it's Eliphas Levy, maybe it's whoever it is. But get all that, but then process it yourself. Don't take everything, like this whole thing of being skeptical, don't take it all on face value. Even it might be all true, but it mightn't be helpful for you and it mightn't be your approach. Like, let me see if I can give you, like, Gordon talks about the sigils and about his shoaling and the robofish and all this. And it's wonderful tech and it really works and all that kind of thing. But that mightn't be how you work best. And then you could make yourself feel bad about, my robofish or my, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google Rune Soup sigils and you'll find it out. My robofish doesn't work. Oh, sigils don't work that way. I'm never giving up on sigils. But just find your own approach of it. Always, look to these people who've written these things and, ideas. But then be your own master at the end of it and approach these things in your own way and try and follow your own kind of path rather than feeling you have to do it certain ways or, just because Alan Chapman meditates in a certain way or goes going through this wisdom thing or whatever doesn't mean that's what you have to do. You can take what you need from him or what's interesting you and do your own thing. Or if it turns out that you fully agree with everything Alan Chapman says or enough to find it interesting, go and do what he's saying. If that is what's working for you, then do it. But don't feel that you have to do these things. And that was probably something that I got caught up too much in looking at magic through the lens of other people, rather than taking it as information, assimilating it, processing it, and making my own thing out of it or having my own opinion about it. And I feel that I needed to break away from that to see that I was taking it in a sense probably all a bit too seriously or not seriously, that's not right. I wasn't taking it too seriously. I was too stringently or too by the book possibly, or too, this is the way it is, this is how you have to do it, rather than going with the flow, going with my own feel of it and my own kind of feelings about it or my damn 5-HTP and my loss of vocabulary. As if you're your own intuition. Thank you, brain. Thank you for the word. I appreciate that you finally got it there on second class postage from the back of my brain to my mouth. So yeah, that's it. Without belaboring the point any further, is that knowledge is wonderful and people are wonderful, and all of these resources that people have given, whether it be books, podcasts, websites, courses, YouTube channels, totally including myself in this, are all wonderful things, but don't take them as gospel truth or don't take them as the only way or whatever. Take what you need from it and go in your own direction, or not. Go totally in the direction you want to do if it happens to be exactly the same as someone else's. But just be aware that experts or knowledge in itself or way things are done, that doesn't necessarily mean that is the way you're going to end up doing it or way you would want to do it or whatever. See magic more as an art or like music or whatever, and you have all these rules, the theory of music, and you have scales and you have timings and all that, and that's all great. But if Kurt Cobain had got too bogged down in all of that, he wouldn't have been who he was. So but then you have Steve Vai, who got very much bogged down in that, and if he hadn't have thought in that way, he wouldn't have been Steve Vai. So you have to find your own kind of its own center in whatever way you want and approach it that way. So yes, people. So yeah. And that was another Tommy Kelly podcast. And as I said last week, I said that there would be a new version of the 40 Servants deck out, and I was hoping that, all going to plan, it would be out. And lo and behold, my request out to the universe, or out to consciousness, as I've decided to call it, not the universe, was granted, and everything went smoothly, and it was released. It came out on last Thursday. So if it's something you're interested in, the link will be in the show description. And it's a slightly bigger, it's about an inch bigger, maybe something like that, version of the deck. It's a nice 2-piece box that slides in together rather than the, like the playing card box. And it has the Unifying Sigil, and it has the 4 Devils. There's 5 Devils actually, but it's the 4 Devils, but there's 2 versions of Cranbach. And then there has kind of like a leaflet, a quick guide to it as well. But if you buy it, you also get the PDF of the Grimoire of the 40 Servants and the digital deck to work with straight away. So while you're waiting for it to be put together and sent out by the Game Crafter, you can, start working with it straight away with the Grimoire and the printable digital deck. There's also a t-shirt out of the Unifying Sigil, and you can find that on the website. It'll also be in the show description, and some of them have started to arrive for people, and they're really happy with the quality and the turnaround time and all that kind of stuff as well. The normal deck is on sale as ever it was. There's actually still a few of the special limited edition white decks of the Grimoire decks. I think there's 10 left. So if that's something you're interested in, get on that as well. If you would like to help me out, one of the major things you can do to help me out is like, share, tell other people about this podcast, or about the website, or about the YouTube channel, or about the 40 Servants, or anything like that. Just get the word out. Tell other people. Liking and sharing, leaving 5-star ratings, nothing less than a 5-star, please, are really great. Amazon reviews, leaving a review in GameCraft, or any of these things are really helpful, whatever. If you'd like to spend some money to help me, then you can go to tommykelly.com, which is TOMMIE, and that will bring you to my Patreon page, where you can support me with your actual monies. And in return, what you get is a number of rewards. There's the digital deck, there's the Grimoire, there is you can get all my comics. There's like a what do you call those things? Like cards for learning cards. I can't remember. There's doesn't matter. Some sort of cards that you write, that note cards kind of thing for the 40 Servants. I should know these things. I'm still bling 5 HTP. A number of things. One of the other big rewards over on Patreon is the Journey, which is this year-long shadow working meditative course, trying to become a better person using servitors, whatever, and that's going really well. We're kind of in the middle of that now, and the way it's designed is kind of, there's a lull in the middle where it's to be, nice, because shadow work can be quite intense. So it's at the minute we're doing some positivity stuff, and then it'll ramp up again going towards the end, and it'll get pretty intense again. This can be done at any time. You didn't have to start with us in January. You can start whenever you want. So if that seems like something you'd be interested in, then go to tommykelly.com. And you can find all the stuff there. You get everything early as well. You get the podcast early, you get the YouTube videos early, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm at Tommy Kelly on Twitter. It's Tommy Kelly Artist. It's my artist page on Facebook. I'm at Tommy Kelly on Instagram, 500px, Flickr, all of those places. You can go to Tommy Kelly Podcast, and that'll get you all the podcasts. Or just go to adventuresandwoo-woo.com, and that is the blog, and that's where everything is. The 40 Servants. How to use 40 Servants, everything you could possibly know. So, good people of the internet, may your magic be wonderful. May it teach you more about you. May you be more confident in yourself as a magician. May you see the world through your own eyes and not through the lens of others. As helpful as that can be sometimes, it's probably still more helpful to see the world from your perspective or whatever, and approach it in that way with the knowledge you have gained and gleaned from books, podcasts, videos and YouTubes. So, have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you all next week. Be well.